Good morning. This is March the 30th, Sunday, 2025, and we are in BBIS second semester compulsory English class. Last week, Thursday, we were talking about the story, the chapter 1962. What I did was I had the PDF file on the screen and I took you through the paragraphs and I tried to make you familiar with the story. And you saw how in the first chapter, Dawn, the narrator, Phil Knight, has the idea of the shoe company, and how in the second chapter, 1962, he begins by sharing this idea to his father, and then he tells his family and how he sets out for his world tour, and then he stays in Hawaii, Honolulu, and then he alone goes to Japan, and he finally meets the people at Onitsuka Shoe Company. He pitches their idea to them, and when they ask the question, what is the name of your company? He, within seconds, promptly improvises an answer and says the name of my company is the Blue Ribbon Shoe Company. And his father sends him $50 and he gives an order for sample shoes, and then he says, I will go around the world now, and he travels more than 12, 13 countries in every continent, and you saw how every place he goes he learns something. If you see this story, पढ्नुस् न कस्तो इन्स्पायरिङ छ, हात जोडेर भन्छु पढ्नुस्, तपाईको रमाइलो हुन्छ, इन्जोय गर्नुहुन्छ, पढ्नुस् प्लिज। पढ्नु भन्दा राम्रो कुरा तपाईलाई अहिले केही पनि छैन, यसको रिजल्ट पछि पाउनुहुन्छ, नपढे पनि रिजल्ट पछि पाउनुहुन्छ, अहिले पाउनु अहिले त बुवामा हुनुहुन्छ नि त सपोर्ट गर्ने। ओके, so he goes to Athens and he sees the temple of goddess Nike, and on the carving he sees a lady who is bending down to tie the laces of her sandal. And if you remember, I have shown you a line, wherever he goes, whatever country he goes, his eyes are always on the shoes people are wearing. Whatever city he goes, what does he pay attention to? What kind of shoes people are wearing? And there also he sees the shoes, sandals. That carving, stone carving is thousands of years old. And then he decides to name his company with that goddess Nike, which means victory. And she is the goddess of persuasion. She is the goddess of negotiation. She is the goddess of victory. And he names his shoe company with that goddess. And he comes home, then family is happy, and last question he asks is, Daddy, have the shoes arrived? And the chapter ends there. And I also tried to analyze the other elements of the plot, like I talked about exposition, I talked about setting, time, place, and environment, I talked about conflict, I talked about rising action, I talked about climax, I talked about reversal, falling action, denouement, I talked about characters, I talked about theme, everything. Now today, I want to start a new chapter that is Atari and India. Okay. You said I forgot to tell you to write the plot summary. If you think you are a good student, you should follow what I'm teaching, and if you know that the teacher has finished this chapter, at home you should check your curriculum, and you should ask yourself what is next week, and you should read before you come to class. And if you come to class without reading, what can I say? You are not kids, you are not primary kids, you are grown-up people. Now you pretty well understand the consequences of our actions. our actions have consequences, right? So Atari and India, last time in the class I talked about the plot, right? I told you the story. Today, let me begin with the title. Can't we, it is a saved file, PDF file? Where do we, okay. In the title, this is a chapter from the biography by Walter Isaacson. Pay attention to this conjunction and. We use the conjunction and to connect two ideas. And is used to show the connection between two ideas. If you say Ram and Hari, there is some connection. They may be from same class, right? So now in the exam, board exam, you may have a question. If I was setting a question, I'll make a question from this title. Like the title of the text is Atari and India. Then I'll ask, in few paragraphs, discuss the connection between Atari and India in this story. That may be my question. What question did I say? Discuss the connection between Atari and India in the story, right? Discuss the connection between Atari and India in this story. Now let me focus that question. So if you see in the beginning of this story, it's February 1974. The story opens in the month of February 1974, all right? And in the first paragraph, we see that Steve Jobs has dropped his college. He has come back home after about 18 months, I guess. And then he is looking for a job. He drops and looks for a job. What is inspiring here is he is 19. His parents took him to college. His foster parents, not biological parents. And he dropped. He came home. What is inspiring is he does not want to be a burden on his parents. He looks for a job. I ask you a question. You are 19. Do you have a job? Are you working somewhere? Do you make some money? Or are you a burden on the parents? This is what you should learn from this story. Here is a boy of your age, right? Then another inspiring thing is that he needs a job and he goes for a job. He looks for the job. Nobody gives you a job. You should learn writing job applications and CVs. You should learn looking into newspapers, classified advertisements, Bargikrit Vigyapan. You should go for the interview. He goes and he says, I won't return unless I get the job. So first paragraph, there is slight conflict. What conflict? You have this boy, the hero, Steve Jobs. He is at Atari. He has unkempt hair. His hair is unkempt. His hair is lousy. He looks lousy. He looks like a hippie. And he gets there and says, I won't go back if you don't give me a job. Conflict. Between what? Steve Jobs and Atari people. So this conflict is character versus character. Character versus character. When this class started, there was a conflict between you and me. I was scolding you, right? I was angry. That's a conflict, right? Now, second paragraph, if you see, second paragraph is not so important. It simply introduces you the major characters like, Nolan Bushnell is founder director. You know that Al Alcorn is a chief engineer. And then you know some more people in this paragraph. To two people, right? L.L. Cohn and Nolan Bushnell. There are some details about the people, not so important, you read. And you also know one important thing, that Atari is making a video game called Pong. Don't forget, this may be a part of multiple choice question, right? What was the name of the game that Atari developed? So Pong is the game, and there is a description of the game. Paragraph 2, right? Now third paragraph. Third paragraph. When Steve Jobs arrives, he is received by L.L. Cohn, and look how they respond. They say, we have got a hippie kid. What is hippie? Hippie is a subculture in 1960s and 70s. The people who followed this culture, they were open and they were opposed to traditional conservative ideas. I don't know much about that, but it's a very famous word. We don't have hippies today, I guess. It was a subculture that was found in 1960s and 70s in the Western world. And the important thing is that many of these hippies came to India and Nepal, Himalayas. If you read Nepali history, around Indrachok, New Road, hashish was sold, marijuana was sold, and these hippies came for smoking hashish and marijuana to Kathmandu. Okay, now we read that he is hired, right? He gets $5 per hour for his work. There are 50 employees. Information. Wherever you have factual information, you should note down for a multiple choice question. There can be a question, how many employees were there in Atari? 50, 49, 48, like that, right? Now, it was a weird thing to hire a dropout, right, from Reed. Now, Alcon says, chief engineer, I hired because I saw something in him. What do you learn? Who is a leader? Who is a leader? Who is a true boss? A true boss is one who can see the potential in the employees. Who is a genuine boss? They look at you and they observe you and they know your potential. He hired because he saw that potential, that this boy can do something good in company. Intelligent, he found that Steve Jobs looked intelligent, right, enthusiastic, excited about technology, right? Sorry. Now, Alcorn asks Steve Jobs to work under Don Lang, another engineer. Now, there's a problem. See the conflict here. Now, we have conflict. What conflict? Character versus character between Steve Jobs and Alcorn. So what happens? This guy is a goddamn hippie with body odor. It's a taboo word. We normally do not say it. So why did you do this to me? And he is impossible to deal with. Look his nature. This is Steve Jobs' nature. And please pay attention, because there is a question. Why is he like that? Why is Steve Jobs like this? And there is an answer. One possible answer is that Steve Jobs has this hard nature because he is suffering with a problem. What problem? The problem of his identity. He does not know his father and mother. He knows that the people who raised me, they are not my parents. He knows. Paul and Clara. Paul and Clara. Paul, the father, Clara, the mother, they adopted him. They are not his father. But he does not know who his father is, who his mother is. So he eats vegetarian fruit to solve that body odor problem, right? Then, see the conflict. I showed you conflict here. Again conflict. See the conflict. I'll focus more on conflict because conflict is a very important part of every story. Lang and others wanted to let Job go. They wished he left the job because it was not easy to work with him, right? And then, look, Nolan Bushnell is a wonderful boss, wonderful director, wonderful manager. When there is problem among employees, he finds a solution. What solution? he finds a solution that now Steve will work at night and others will work at day. So now Steve comes in the evening to Atari when everybody has gone and he works alone. Have you seen in the story, Steve has one nature. Steve is not a very socialized kind of guy. He always likes to be alone. He can't mix with people easily. He can't be friends with people easily, right? And in the story, he goes to India alone. He travels to mountains. Why? For spiritual exploration, for search of enlightenment, for soul searching, he says, right? And his personality is brash. What is brashness? Brashness is a very rough personality. Somebody who sounds rude, who gives you rude answers, who is not easy to mix with, right? In one interview later on, look his attitude. Look his Steve Jobs' attitude. Look his attitude. In later interview, Steve Jobs remembers, the only reason I shone in Atari was that everyone else was so bad. Even after decades, he says, everybody was bad. Look his attitude. He says, I was shining because, not because I had talent, but because they were dumb, stupid guys. Still, after decades, he calls them stupid. People at Atari. Look his attitude. Look his arrogance. Now, all this attitude has a cause. I'll show you later on why. Now, when you come to this question, why does he have this tough attitude? Then the answer is, Steve Jobs is carrying a problem. He is carrying a problem with him, and I will show you the problem. Wait a minute. So, okay. He will often, this thing, he will talk about philosophical issues. He will talk about free will and determinism. These are two terms of sociology. What is free will and what is determinism? Let's first understand determinism. I have this shikha, right? Can you see it? You can see it? My shikha. Let me untie and show you a long shikha. This is. I have this shikha because I was born in a Brahmin family. And not only that, I was born in a very religious family. My father is 90 today and he wakes up at 3 in the morning and he spends 3 hours doing puja. Right from my childhood, my father taught me religious things, religious practices and all that. Now at 56, I have this shikha. Many of you don't have shikha, right? Raise your hand if you are Brahmin in this class. Raise your hand. Okay. Do you have shikha? Do you have shikha? No. Now ask a question. Why the 3 Brahmin boys there don't have shikha and why I have shikha? Simple answer is, it depends on my social cultural background. So determinism is who you are, what you do, where you go, what you study. It all depends on social factors. You came to LSEM because your parents were able to pay the fee here. Otherwise, you will go to some government college. Take it easy. You are here because all of you come from same class in Nepali society, upper class, or let's say middle class. I'm not generalizing, but my point is determinism means what we do, what we become is all predetermined in society. Like, can you avoid coming to college? No. Look, before you were aware of society, your parents took you to a kindergarten. They dumped you there. You are already conditioned by your parents. They put you there. 1 class, 2 class, 3 class. Could you ever say, I want to go to college? They will slap you. They will throw you in the college gate. Do you remember being carried by your mama and at the school gate, the teacher snatch you and you cry? The 2 sides, pulling and pushing. You don't want to go to college? Could you decide? No. Nothing is in your hands. Nothing is in your hands. Everything is predetermined, pre-decided. If you were born in Africa, you will be African. You are Nepali because you are here. Determinism. Society determines your fate. Society determines your life, not you. Now, free will is a term much used by Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, the German thinker, philosopher. Free will just opposite. Free will says, I have my will, my desire, and if I truly desire something and devote my life, I can do it. Like in the story Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's father is not a businessman, as we can guess, though the story we haven't read. But we guess Phil Knight's father is not a businessman. But Phil Knight has this idea kindling in his heart, I will open a shoe company. Will, desire to open a shoe company. Free will. The desire to open a shoe company arose freely in his heart while doing assignment in college. Right? Nobody said you open a shoe company. And he follows his free will. And he starts the company. That is the best example of free will. Right? Free will. Desire is born and you follow and you devote your life and you achieve it. And Steve Jobs, I don't know, I have a question to you before I answer. You keep thinking. Do you think Steve Jobs follows free will or do you think he follows determinism? I won't answer right now, you decide. Maybe I'll answer later on. Okay. Look here. Oh, we have got the answer, right? There is the answer, if you saw. His faith in the power of the will to bend reality. So Steve Jobs followed free will. He said, yes, washroom. Why didn't you go in the break time? You had a break for that. The break was given to you to go to washroom. Go. Please use the break time for having your breakfast and going to washroom. And when you come to class, make sure you are available for 1 hour. Okay? I can't prevent you from going to washroom. It's a nature call. I shouldn't, right? I do respect your rights. But I want you to be here for 1 hour without any disturbance. Okay. His faith in the power of the will. At Atari, Steve Jobs learned something from Bushnell. What did he learn? The most important thing that Steve Jobs learned from Bushnell, the founder director, was if you really ठान लिया मैं ये करूंगा तो you can do it. That's what he learned. If you determine I will do it, you will do it. And as he grew, later on, he followed this idea. And people appreciate it. That's why, he established what company? What is the famous company that Steve Jobs established? Mac company. Mac. There is a second chapter in your course later on. Steve Jobs was called to give commencement speech at Bard College. No, not Bard, Reed College. And there he talks about his story, how he became successful. He started his company in his father's garage. Right? Okay. Move ahead. So he helps to develop the video game, right? At one point, we have another character here, Ron Wayne, a draftsman at Atari. They become friends, right? And then at one point, Steve Jobs says, let's open our own company. Hello, Ron, let's open our company. Then Ron had already opened a company and he lost it. He lost 50,000. He says, no. I've already opened a company and I know I won't again open a company. But Ron Wayne praises Steve Jobs one thing. What? He had the burning drive to start his own business. Now what do you learn? You are doing BBIS. If you are doing BBIS to become a job holder, you are wrong. What you should do? See, you should have the desire to start your own business. That's why Steve Jobs opened the Mac company, right? MacBook. Or Apple company, right? I was wrong saying Mac company. I should say, what is the name of the company? Mac or Apple? Apple. Nobody corrected me, right? They're so gentle people. If I make mistakes, you say, okay, sir, carry the mistake. You don't correct me, right? If you want to destroy somebody, don't correct their errors. Today, he will make error before 50 people. Tomorrow, he will make error before 50 million people. And when he makes error before 5 million people, there will be a disaster. So if you want to destroy somebody, do not correct their errors, right? If you want to save somebody, correct their errors. Not Mac company, but Apple company, right? Because I don't use Apple phone, I forgot that it's Apple company. Okay, leave it. So he had philosophical discussions. At one point, there is another conflict. One day, Steve Jobs goes to meet Ron Wayne. And Ron Wayne says, do you know, I want to tell you something. Ron Wayne says, then Steve Jobs says, no, I know, don't tell me. I know that you like men, you are a gay. Steve Jobs had already guessed, oh, this guy is a gay by his behavior, right? And it was his first encounter with somebody, he knew it's gay, but Jobs was so honest, he never told anybody that he is gay throughout his life. He never told, except in this biography, right? So here is something difficult to read. Read here. I was asking, how come they put this in your course, right? Jobs recalled, he planted the right perspective of it for me, perspective of being gay. Jobs grilled him. Jobs said to Ron Wayne, when you see a beautiful woman, what do you feel? Because you're a gay. Look his answer. Wayne replied, it's like when you look at a beautiful horse, you can appreciate the beauty of the horse, but you can't sleep with the horse. So his point is, I see a beautiful girl, I can appreciate her being Mona Lisa, but because I'm gay, I can't sleep with her. Right? See, then I was reading this, I had difficult time, not easy to read it. Because I am a straight person. Because I am a straight person, to be frank, it's quite difficult for me to read about gay things. Okay, move ahead. Okay. Nobody at Atari knew, and I could count on my toes and fingers the number of people I told in my whole life. This also, now, section 1 ends. So I was discussing Atari and India. And I talked about Atari so far. I told you how he got the job, who were the people there, Bushlin, Alcorn, and Ron Wayne, all that. And I also showed you the problem, how Steve Jobs was a difficult personality person. Now come to India, because it's Atari and India. Now, one person, Jobs was eager to make some money. For one reason, he wanted to make money in 1974 was that Robert Friedland, who had gone to India in the summer before, was urging him to take his own spiritual journey there. Now ask a question, why did Steve Jobs want to have a spiritual journey? Now I will tell the answer, or wait, I won't tell the answer right now. I will show the line later on. Friedland had studied in India with Neem Karoli Baba. If you go to your principal's room here at LSEM, behind the principal's chair, there on the wall, there is Neem Karoli Baba's photograph. Your principal often visits his dham in India. And you can see Neem Karoli Baba was a spiritual figure who lived in India in 1960s, 70s, 80s, right? Maharajji. And the remarkable thing was that thousands of Western hippies came to India to meet him. He was their guru, popular guru. Now, I want to show you the real problem in the text. What is the conflict, root of conflict? Jobs decided he should do the same, and he recruited Daniel Kotke to go with him. Jobs was not motivated by mere adventure. For me, now pay attention, it was a serious search. Now ask a question. What was he searching? One answer is, he was searching himself. The question he had was, who am I? Who is my mother? Who is my father? He did not know his parents, biological parents. Paul and Clara, they were his foster parents, right? Now, I had been turned on to the idea of enlightenment and trying to figure out who I was and how I fit into things. This question came primarily because of his birth problem. He did not know where he was born. He did not know who his parents were. This is a serious problem he had. Now, look here. Here is exact line the problem. The central conflict in this story. The central conflict. Read this line. Job's quest seemed driven partly by not knowing his birth parents. Not knowing his birth parents. There was a hole in him. What was the hole? This emptiness. I don't know my parents. And he was trying to fill this hole by searching for his identity. I know I am Aryal. My surname is Aryal. We go to Kul Puja and we do Kul Puja. There we know about our ancestors. I know my father. I know my grandfather. I know my mother's father. I know my biological roots. Steve Jobs did not know his biological roots. He was cut off. And this was a central problem. So one day he tells people at Atari is leaving, and he goes to India to search his guru, right? Now, so he does one more job to earn some money to go to India, and finally he comes to India at Delhi airport. Well, let me show. He goes to Germany, Munich, Lugano, Switzerland, and then finally comes to New Delhi. He comes to New Delhi, right? Takes a hotel, becomes sick, loses his weight, then comes to Haridwar, then finally comes to Nainital, right? And there he rents a room in Nainital. He lives in a room. There is a lady who gives him food, vegetarian food. He reads the autobiography of the yogi. This book must have played an important role to change his outlook. He goes in the villages, right? He walks around the villages. He meets other English people there. Then he meets a Hindu holy man. He goes there for having food because he's hungry. I read somewhere that Steve Jobs would walk 2-3 hours to have free food because he had no money to eat food. So he would walk 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening just to have food, free food. Right? This is remarkable. Okay, this Hindu holy man, what he does, he shaves his hair. He takes in the mountain and he shaves his hair, right? And then he looks like a sadhu. So, thus Steve Jobs stays in India for 7 months, right? 7 months. And then he returns America. At the airport authorities make a call to his home. There is a guy, maybe your son, come and receive him. They don't let him go alone because he is not in a good condition. So his parents come and he is, how does he look? He is wearing a saffron colored dress. He looks like a Hare Krishna guy. And his mother also can't recognize him. They took him back home where he continued trying to find this question, trying to find himself. When he comes back from India, he is more philosophical. His attitude has become more philosophical. His outlook has become more philosophical, right? So he would do meditation morning, evening. He would study Zen. I don't know much about Zen. Zen is a form of Buddhism that developed in Japan, right? And then he would do auditing in Stanford University to get some money. Now this third section, my question is, what is the connection between Atari and India? And I'm showing you how from Atari comes to India. Now I'll show the connection, wait a minute. I'll show the connection in the last chapter, last section I mean. So the chapter search is, it has two meanings. Actually Steve Jobs is more philosophical now, spiritual. Look, he is interested in Eastern spirituality, Hinduism, Jain Buddhism, and he searches for enlightenment, right? He focuses on pragya. Pragya, Lord Shiva has one eye here. If you see one eye, two eye, there is a third eye, vertical. That's pragya netra. If Shiva opens this eye, he can see what people cannot see. So pragya stands for your intuition, your wisdom, your cognitive ability, right? Cognitive understanding. So he looks for that wisdom. He is searching for wisdom, right? And he talks about the influence of his travel to India in his life. Then he is also more interested in Jain meditation, Jain Buddhism. Though he does not go to Japan, but he learns about Jain from one teacher in America, Shunryu Suzuki. He joins the Jain meditation by Shunryu Suzuki, right, at San Francisco Jain Center. He regularly goes there every Wednesday evening and he attends meditation, right? Okay. Then I'll move quickly and show you something. He is very much devoted to his search, really serious and self-important and just really unbearable. Show me, wait a minute. Yes, wait a minute. This line. Jobs' compulsive search for self-awareness is remarkable. He attends scream therapy. In psychology, when in your childhood you have some problem and you are carrying those bad memories, then they'll make you cry, they'll make you shout. And the theory is that if you cry recalling those bad memories, you will have relief from those memories, right? He attends that kind of therapy. Now let me tell you one central problem I've been telling is that Steve Jobs has the problem of the question who I am, who is my father, who is my mother, right? For example, I will show you a line where he talks about this thing. Let me show the line where Steve Jobs talks about this problem. Yes, here it is, this line. Jobs confided to close friends that he was driven by the pain he was feeling about being put up for adoption. He could not imagine that her parents put him for adoption like a puppy, and not knowing about his birth parents. This is the conflict. This is the central conflict in the story. So this conflict is between character versus the self. The major conflict in the story is character and self. You have a problem inside and you have this conflict. Steve had a very profound desire to know his physical parents, so he could better know himself. Who would not like to know their parents? Can you imagine you not knowing your parents? Raise your hand if you don't know your parents. You know, right? Friedland later said he had learned from Paul and Clara Jobs that's why he got his surname from the foster parents, right? Steve Jobs. He got the last name from the foster parent, not from the biological parents. That his birth parents had both been graduate students at a university. Even he does not know which university, right? And that his father might be Syrian, might be, not sure. I didn't want to hurt my parents by searching for my father. He says, this is a very central paragraph in the story which shows the major conflict in this story. Then he felt that it was an issue. It means not knowing his parents, that he needed to get hold of emotionally. It was, this problem was a very emotional problem. Not knowing your parents. This is something that is bothering me and I need to focus on it, he said. That's why he went to scream therapy, he went to meditation, Zen, because he was always grappled by that question, who are my parents? A lot of soul searching about being adopted. The primal scream and the mucus diets, he was trying to cleanse himself, get deeper into his frustration about his birth. He had this frustration about his birth, right? He was deeply angry about the fact that he had been given up. He was very angry with his parents. He wanted to meet them and ask them, why did you adopt? Why did you leave me for adoption? Okay, then John Lennon, Steve Jobs liked John Lennon and his song, because John Lennon has the same story. John Lennon's mother had been killed when he was a teenager and his father left him. So Lennon sang a song, Mama, don't go, Daddy, come home. And Steve Jobs, in his car while traveling, he would often play this song. He would listen to this song. What song? Mama, don't go, Daddy, come home. So as we read, Steve Jobs has very abrasive personality, very, very, very rough personality, very hard personality, very difficult personality, right? Okay. Yes. One important thing is here about Steve Jobs' personality. He had the attitude that he could do anything, and therefore so can you. And this attitude, where did he learn? He learned this attitude from Nolan Bushnell at Atari, because Bushnell had this habit. Bushnell will pretend that he can control everything. And Bushnell found when you pretend as a manager, you can control people, people will start following you. And Steve learned this thing from Bushnell. And Steve said, if I determine I can do it, I can do it. And people believe that Steve can do anything. And you will see in the story, later in the last part, there is a very challenging job. Bushnell wants to develop another version of Pong with single player using minimum chips. And he gives this job to Steve Jobs. And he says this job should take 2-3 months. And Steve Jobs finishes this work in 4 days by working day and night without sleeping. He works 4 days, day and night without sleeping, and finishes the task that was supposed to be done in 1 month or 2 months in 4 days. Okay, now last section will connect the title Atari and India. This story is like a circle. It ends where it began. It begins with Atari in 1974 February, and it ends with Atari 1975. We don't know the month. He comes back at Atari. He left Atari and he is back. See, Atari and India. So in between, where is he? He is in India. And what does he learn in India? He learns Zen. He learns Zen Buddhism, Zen meditation. What role does it have? It has a role. Let me show you. Before that, what is the subtitle of the story? What is the subtitle? Zen and the art of game making. I say again, keep in mind, Zen and the game of art making. There can be a long answer question in the board exam. What question? The subtitle of the story is Zen and the art of game making. What connection between Zen and the art of game making do you find in this story? A long answer question for 8 marks. Now I will focus that question also and the first question also. So I was saying Atari and India. And I told you from Atari he came to India and now again he is back to Atari. Now how is he? Barefoot, without sandals, wearing a saffron robe, sadhu, the What do you call saffron in Hindi, Nepali? What do you call saffron? What is the color that sadhus wear? Yogi Adityanath wears, the Indian, what do you call that color in Nepali? The narangi color, narangi, saffron. Popularly known as the Bhagava color, the color of the Hindu flags. Okay, carrying a copy of Be Here and Now. I haven't read this book, but I want to download and read this. Be here and now means live in the present. Live in the present. Don't think about tomorrow, not about tomorrow and yesterday. Live in the present. And he looked like a Hare Krishna guy. Now again he says, look what he says. Look what he says. Wait a minute. Where is the line? There is a line I want to show you. No, it should be here. I'm missing the line. There is a line where he says, can I get a job again? He humbly comes and says, excuse me, can I get a job back again? Right? He has no hesitation. Yes, here. Can I have my job back? See his politeness. See his humility. Now here, he is not arrogant. He is no more arrogant. This is not the Steve Jobs in the first section, who will say, can I have my job again? He will say, give me job, otherwise I won't go home. See the arrogance in the first chapter, first paragraph. I won't go back home unless I get a job. From there, excuse me, sir, can I have my job? See this change in his outlook, attitude. Okay. Now the second title, what is the subtitle of this story? Zen and the art of game making, right? Video game making. Now I will answer that question. One day in the late summer of 1975, Nolan Bushnell defying the prevailing... Oh, time is over? Yes, sir. You have class? Yes, sir. Now, your homework is, you write answer of this second question. Atari and the art of video game making. Write the answer of this question at home. When you come to class, bring 2-paragraph answer of this question. Thank you. When you come to class, bring